Welcome back to the Vanessa G Fitcast. I'm Vanessa Pozos, and here with me is Omar Pozos, my co-host and husband. And we've got our sweatshirts on because it is officially fall in Florida.
What does fall in Florida look like? Tell the people.
Well, I mean, it was like 69 degrees yesterday, and today it is currently 61 degrees.
Vanessa and I went for a walk yesterday. We're back in our neighborhood after the storm, and I was telling her, I was like, man, this is chilly. And I think we got made fun of because it was, 68, 69. People are like, seriously, you guys, it's chilly for you already?
Well, you know what? We're Florida born, or at least I'm Florida born. You're at least
I'm Mexico born, so it's even hotter for me.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. So, you know what? We just feel differently in weather. But very thankful to be back home. If you listened to our last episode last week, we were just kind of displaced for a week with Hurricane Milton, kind of taking things out for us. So it took a while.
That name's the worst. I hate that name, Milton. Sorry if anybody out there is named
someone
Milton.
is named Milton or their child's named Milton, and they're like,
I apologize.
Thanks. But we're back. We're back home now. Your office is not quite usable because we did have a tree fall through the roof on that side. So at least that, just kind of siloed off that room, and we're making do, and we're good to go. We're grateful to be back home, back in our routines, and feeling a lot better now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you were saying it, but we got a little bit of damage, but compared to what others in the area are dealing with, we were very, very grateful. We're back in the house. Power got back on Monday. And so, just sending a lot of love and thoughts and prayers to people that were impacted by the storm. I hope we can do a quick recovery as a community soon.
Absolutely. Well, on today's episode, I want to talk about why your reverse diet isn't working.
Before we started recording, I was like, this is going to be scandalous. I like it.
I don't know if it's that necessarily that scandalous per se, but what does feel maybe, scandalous is not the right word, but does feel almost like vulnerable to share is part of what I wanted to share this episode is because, as coaches, as functional health coaches and practitioners and just our entire team, we are constantly elevating our learning. We, myself and our coaches, we're always taking continuing education courses. We're always continuing to try and stay up to date with the newest research and learn as much as we can so that we can bring the best possible coaching to our clients. And so with that, of course, year over year, our coaching does improve just like insanely, honestly. Year over year, our coaching just gets better and better. And so of course, that's a wonderful thing. But the downside to that is I often find myself reflecting back from years prior and think back and be like, oh gosh, if I had that client who I had 3 years ago today, I could have done so much more for them. And I just I always hold on to that feeling of just kind of kicking myself of, man, I wish I knew then what I knew now and I could help them so much more. And so one thing that kind of came up for me that I was thinking about actually yesterday and why I decided I wanted to put this together into a podcast episode is I was thinking back to about 3 years ago or so. I really, when I first started getting into the concept of reverse dieting for clients and was finding that, that was what majority of women needed was a reverse diet to repair their metabolism.
Yeah. Can you in 30 seconds or less go over what this concept entails, just so that people are aware of it? And we do have previous episodes. I just looked it up. But so episode 17 goes over what a reverse diet is. Episode 51, how to lose fat by eating more. They go in more in depth, but just for if anybody hasn't had the context, would you do that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So a reverse diet is a strategic process of increasing your caloric intake and theoretically your metabolism increasing in the process. So essentially by slowly and methodically kind of adding calories in a structured way with certain breakdowns of macronutrients, you can train your metabolism to burn that amount of calories. You can teach it that is your new intake so that can be its new output. So we can raise your metabolic rate, we can raise the amount of calories that you are able to burn through the process of that reverse diet.
And why is that helpful for people that have been on the restrictive side, would you say?
Yeah. So, think of how many women have spent years under eating, going through diet to diet. And, maybe they just go through periods of time where they're focused on their nutrition. And that looks like restricting. That looks like eating 1,500 calories, 1,200 calories, 1,000 calories, even less than that.
I think people are going to gasp and they're like, 1,500 calories? That's under eating, technically?
For some women, it is. Yeah, of course. It very much varies from person to person, but for a lot of women, that's definitely under eating. And the reality is a lot of women have stayed just trying to eat as little calories as possible. And when you do that, what happens? Your body is smart. Your body is going to adapt. And so your body learns, well, if this is all I'm getting, this is all the calories coming in, then I have to learn to operate off that amount of calories. And so in order to do that, I need to slow my metabolic rate down. I need to slow down my metabolism so that I can maintain my body on, 1,000 calories, 1,200, 1,500, whatever it is. And so that becomes your new metabolic rate. That's why you stop losing weight at that amount of calories. That's why you find that anytime you eat more than that, you just quickly put on weight.
Yeah.
And the reality is it's very easy to eat more than that every once in a while. If you're going out to eat at dinners, at restaurants, if you're, overeating a little bit on weekends, you're going to go over that amount of calories and then you're going to add body fat.
Yeah. That's what people call metabolically adapted, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So all of that to say, that's where a reverse diet, we've found in our practice that a reverse dieting is a really, really effective approach to getting the metabolism kind of turned back on. And we do it in a very methodical, strategic way. We bring in a lot of flexibility and we really teach people how to repair their relationship with food in the process. And I would say for probably... and this is just me kind of throwing out numbers, just purely thinking anecdotally here, I would say for 8 to 9 out of 10 women who come to us, that is just exactly what they need to get their metabolism turned back on, to get hormones balancing out, to get their body feeling better, and to get them to a place where now they can lose body fat again. But what about those 1 to 2 other women? Well, that's what I want to talk about in this episode. And that's what I find myself kind of kicking myself for when I think back to years ago when I didn't know what I know now and what I want to share with you guys in this episode. And that is that some of those women, I would, first in initial assessments, I think, yes, a reverse diet is going to be what you need. A reverse diet is going to fix your problems. And then we'd start going through the reverse diet process and their body wasn't responding. Their metabolism wasn't speeding up. It wasn't getting to the point of meeting the amount of calories we were giving it. And so what would happen is they would start to actually put on weight, and we would try some different things. And sometimes there was a few women I can think back on that I could not get their bodies to respond. And I had to be honest with them and say, you know what? I'm just going to have to give you a refund. I'm going to refer you out, to maybe some other options for you, but I don't know what else to do here. And that's a really crappy situation to be in as a coach, especially I don't know if all coaches are like this, but I'm like, I want to help everyone as much as I possibly can. And so it breaks my heart if I feel like I've hit a wall and I can't help you. Well, of course, like I said, year over year, we continue to improve our education, learn more and more, try new things, both, with myself. Of course, I trial a lot of things with myself before I bring it to clients, but then also really starting to bring new practices and ideas and methodologies to my clients. And so one of those is, in the last year, we've brought in something to where every time we bring a new client into our program, we have them do a detailed health assessment questionnaire. So we call this the HAQ, the Health Appraisal Questionnaire is actually what it stands for. And essentially what we're doing in that questionnaire is we do a really, really detailed look at all the symptoms that they might be experiencing in their body. And we use a scoring system to have them rate and score those symptoms in the kind of intensity and frequency that they might experience those symptoms. Then the symptoms are kind of categorized with different systems of the body being off that it might be associated with. So we can kind of start to use these scores and now take what is a kind of like a qualitative thing of man, I find that I just feel really fatigued all the time, or I really hit a wall, every day at 2 p.m. We can now take what is just this qualitative information and we can make it quantitative data that we can then use to say, okay, now with all of these symptoms in the body, with all these different systems of the body, how high priority are these issues essentially that they're dealing with? Because somebody might come in with some symptoms and those symptoms might be okay, these are very normal symptoms that you would experience with a adapted metabolism, like you mentioned earlier.
For example, low energy. Let's stick with that one as an example.
Yeah, low energy, struggling to lose weight, those could, on their own, those could be simply symptoms of you having an adapted metabolism, and we need to go through that reverse diet process. However, if we have those symptoms and they are rated as, very, very severe, which we have of course, more detailed descriptions of how we go about that process. But you also have that with a lot of other extreme symptoms. And now in total, the scores are getting really high. And now the the amount of the score, like the numbers that it comes up with, is now making this a high priority, then we can essentially say, okay, this is looking at somebody that they're probably not going to be able to respond to a reverse diet. I can now kind of predict how their body is going to respond to that reverse diet.
Based on what the quantitative data, like the rankings of what people are answering comes back with, right?
Because essentially it's like if you have a lot of high priority systems in the body, meaning that, and again, this is meaning that across those systems of the body, you expressed a lot of symptoms at like high intensity or frequency, and there's multiple of them. What that is telling us is that your body is experiencing a lot of systemic inflammation. There's inflammation across the whole body right now. It's not just our thyroid's a little sluggish. It's not just our gut's a little bit off. Let's, try and reverse diet and see if those things start to respond, which is what will often happen. Because if you're a little bit more constipated, going through that reverse diet process, for most women, that's all they need to get a little bit more regular. But for someone who's dealing with, leaky gut and candida and a sluggish thyroid and our sex hormones are bottomed out, they're probably dealing with a lot of full systemic inflammation. And if we are having a lot of systemic inflammation and we just focus on feeding up, just focus on that reverse diet process of adding more calories, their body isn't going to be ready to handle more calories yet.
Got it. Okay.
What their body's going to do is just store those calories as body fat.
Yeah. So let me just make sure I'm understanding, because, I love analogies, and I think you make fun of me sometimes because I always say the same thing over and over. But like the easiest one for me is like a car, right? So being your body right now, being underfed, like you're giving it too little bit of food, essentially. If it sounds like what you're saying is, sure, the biggest, most obvious thing to do is feed it up, give it more fuel. But if there's like a leaky gas tank or this is wrong, with the health appraisal questionnaire, you're able to pinpoint more specifically, like, well, this system is connected to this and this is connected to this. So therefore, while sure, maybe the nutrition needs to be changed and adapted, we also have to work on XYZ thing. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Boom. Got it.
Yeah. Like I can even put this into an example. So,
you didn't like my example?
Well, no, yours was an analogy. I'm going to give like a specific client example here. So this is kind of top of mind of, our team. Of course, we collaborate and work together across different clients. And so like we had a new client come in and we were looking at her HAQ form, which is that health appraisal questionnaire that I was referencing. And so she's an example of she had a lot of high priority items across her HAQ. Also looking at her health history and, some of the assessments we did upon taking her in as a client. We also had information such as she is diagnosed Hashimoto's, which is a autoimmune disease of the thyroid, and she is diagnosed PCOS. And so we can kind of see, okay, with all these symptoms across her HAQ, with knowing these things that we know are pre-existing that we know she's coming in with, we can tell that she has a lot of systemic inflammation going on. Like that's very, very clear. We can even probably see it in photos. Oftentimes you can kind of see inflammation across the body. It looks a little bit different than body fat across the body. And so knowing that, we can say, okay, originally we were kind of thinking that her plan was going to be just a traditional reverse diet process through the beginning and then see how her body responds after the reverse diet and then see if we need to do any deeper protocols with supplements and things like that. But now seeing that the symptoms across and seeing how many high priority items there are, we can say, okay, now we need to actually change this up a little bit. We need to adjust what we were going to do as her plan. And actually, we're going to start her with a flush. So we've talked about the flush on previous episodes before. So you can refer back to, I think.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, if you want to look up what number episode that was, we went more.
So it's 182 is, does your body need an oil change? That's a big one. And then I know we also did the one with Vince, episode 163.
Perfect. Yeah. So refer back to those episodes and you can learn even more about the flush and what it is. But kind of in short, the flush is a method that we use to where we are pairing functional foods. So rather than just going kind of reverse diet up and kind of like keeping things more flexible, we're actually going to stick to a very specific types of foods for a couple of weeks that are very functional, so are proven to have certain effects on the body. We're going to pair those foods with certain supplements. So we're going to include these medical grade supplements. So they are, third party tested in these like nationally accredited testing facilities to make sure that they are like the highest quality types of supplements. The sourcing is highest quality. The ingredients are highest quality. And also including medical food. So like medical food powder that we'll put into smoothies that they'll also have along with the food. So this is not like a juice cleanse or something crazy like that. This is like you're eating a lot of food, but we're eating very structured, specific foods to get a specific response in the body. And so, for example, those medical foods, they contain ingredients that are essentially, they are scientifically proven. They have been shown in studies to create certain responses in the body. And some of those responses, so for example, they'll have ingredients that are what you call SCRMs, selective kinase response modulators. And so
what is selective what?
Selective kinase response modulators. Oh. And so essentially like a kinase is kind of like it's like an enzyme that creates a certain response in the body. It kind of like, it basically changes certain like pathways in the body. It's getting it's hard honestly to keep that high level because it's very, very sciencey. But essentially these SCRMs can almost act the way
sounds like you're saying like skirt.
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 The SCRMs can have almost like a response the way a antibiotic or medication would in the body, of like having that specific level of like changing a reaction in the body. It can do that, but they are plant-based. They are botanicals. They're literally ingredients coming from plants. They're all natural, yet they're shown to have that kind of a response. So these medical food powders do that. So it can do things like changing your body's insulin sensitivity by kind of redirecting the way that insulin is going to kind of happen in the body. The same way you would if you were taking a medication or antibiotic. It's not going to be quite as acute. It's not going to be like instantaneous the way you take, a medication, but it's going to have that same effect over time. And so by doing that, we can then pull off a lot of that inflammation, pull off that systemic inflammation by just really calming all the systems down. We're getting the gut to calm down. We're getting the liver to kind of get really turned back up, turned back on. The liver is a huge part of your metabolism. We're really nourishing the thyroid, which is kind of your metabolism regulator. It's like pulling the puppet strings on the metabolism. It's nourishing the adrenals, really making sure that your body's stress response is in a good spot. It just gets everything where it needs to be so that we can then do the reverse diet. Mm-hmm. So it's basically becomes like a first step to lay that foundation. And that's the difference maker. That was like a piece of the puzzle that we were missing in prior years. And I kick myself that I didn't know about that then. And I wish I had had that kind of tool in my tool belt back then. But all we can do is, be thankful that we continue to grow and learn, and that we are able to really help women at this higher level now, so that we can, it's rare that we have to kind of turn people away of like, I don't think I'd be able to help you in your situation. Now we can help higher and higher level situations, more and more difficult cases when it comes to hormones and gut, and really make sure that your body is in a place where it can respond to the reverse diet, where we can bring in the flexibility so you can eat all the foods that you want to eat. You can have the cookies, you can have, the alcohol in moderation. You can have these things without having quite a reaction in your body. You can actually start to live more normally.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. I mean, when it comes to that kind of stuff, I think, of course, a lot of it is experience and you understanding now, like other different strategies, levers, processes that you can use to help people. And here's where I think a lot of people get it wrong. And I'm probably going to upset some trainers or coaches that listen to us. But the reality of it is, anybody can raise calories. Anybody can, you give you a training program, right? Mm-hmm. But the problem is, like people, we have so many calls with people and they're like, I've already tried that. I've already tried counting calories. I've already tried macros. I've already tried this training program. I'm like, okay, I totally understand. And while, yes, that is a very much needed approach to be able to dial in the nutrition, to be able to dial in the training, this process, going underneath the surface, digging deep, making sure that we are helping your body, like you were saying, get rid of that inflammation or upregulate, adrenals or hormones or whatever. This is the key difference maker that I think, quite honestly, a lot of even doctors miss, because people go to a doctor and they're like, yeah, take this medication.
We have doctors in our program that work with us.
No. I'm saying like your typical endocrinologist, right?
Yeah.
Your typical OB. Because again, at the end of the day, people come to us and like, well, I've already tried that. I'm like, well, I understand that and I completely get it. So we need to try it in a different way, in a different manner that makes sense to you and your body.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's a point to make as well, is like, we have doctors who are clients in our program.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because they will even admit to themselves of like, this is not something that they have really been trained on. They don't really fully know these types of things, and they know that they're not equipped to help people with these things. And that's why they come to us with often a lot of the same issues that people come to them with. So I think that can be just an example in and of itself, is the fact that we have multiple doctors in our program as clients working through these things as well.
Doctors, nurses, I mean, you name it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope this episode was helpful for you and can kind of give you some ideas of maybe why your body hasn't responded to a reverse diet. If you have tried that process before and you're like, I continue to gain weight through that process. Of course, when we talk about gaining weight, there is a certain like wiggle room of what weight gain actually is. If your weight's just like jumping up, 1, 2, 3, 4 pounds, those could just purely be fluctuations, because that's very normal, especially if you are increasing carbs. Your body, when you store carbs, it's going to also store it along with water. Like there is a kind of like margin of about 4 to 5 pounds, depending on how big of a human you are, that is just normal. It's not body fat, that's just normal weight fluctuations. But if you're finding that you're having these big jumps up in the scale and they keep jumping up, it's just like, this week we're up a pound, next week we're up another pound, next week we're up another pound, it just keeps going up and up and up. That might be a sign that your body needs more than a traditional reverse diet. Your body might need one of the more deeper approaches that we use here, like the flush method, for example.
Yeah.
So if this was helpful for you, send it over to a friend, share it on your social media, get the word out there, do us a favor, and spread this episode far and wide. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll be back next week with another great episode.
And give us a 5-star rating while you're at it.
5-star ratings.
All right. Bye, everybody.